Okay, so the first question is, what was your initial reaction to the situation between Joan and Mary?
I'm trying to pull it back up again. What pages does it start on again?
Mine's 137.
Okay. Sweet.
My first reaction was that I kind of sided with Joan. Like, I would never let someone borrow my brand new car. Like,
Yeah.
unless it was like a really long time, like friend that like you trusted, but like it feels like they don't know each other that well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's also like I get once in a while, but the fact that it was like an expectation was kind of like not really. I kind of agree with you.
There it is.
And it was like when she was gonna be out of town.
Yeah.
I know it said it was like 120 miles away, and I was like, I would let you use it to drive to like 5 minutes away.
No,
Not,
seriously.
not that far.
I know. I'm like, that's a lot of trust in someone you barely know.
Yeah.
Right. And I kind of thought it was like not good, like on her parents. Like, wouldn't you tell your daughter, like, we'll just come like pick you up or something?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, my parents would be like, you're not driving your friend's car this far.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
we'll
they'd be
come
like,
get you.
yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Where is I'm still looking for the thing, sorry. For the questions. Oh, there we are.
Okay, the second one is, to what extent do you believe your own options for approaching a conflict depend on the other person's behavior?
I mean, we all kind of seem to have the same perspective, but that might be because like we've dealt with situations like this maybe in the past, or like we just know how we deal with it personally. So I guess you've like been someone that didn't have a car and like have been like in a kind of similar position, then you might think that they're in the right in that situation.
Yeah, and then also if someone it can depend on the other person, because remember the other case study that we did and they were immediately like fighting. If someone comes at me like that, of course I'm going to be mad and react very differently. So I think it definitely it depends on the other person and their behavior.
Yeah, I think it has to do a lot with the other person's behavior and like
Mm-hmm.
your past experience too. Like, I mean, like I've had roommates like all of college, so I'm like looking at that being like, ooh, like Thanksgiving time, like would I have let them like borrow my car like that early, you know?
Oh
Especially
yeah.
like freshman or like year like in the dorms.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of shapes your opinion too.
Yeah, you have to like have trust in the person, know that they're responsible. They're not going to go and just like destroy your car or something. So definitely.
And it's like, did you really weigh out all the options? Like, how was borrowing your roommate's car like your best case scenario?
That's so true.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was
Yeah,
also
I feel
kind
like
of
they were
petty.
taking.
It was also kind of petty that she was like, yeah, don't give me the insurance until after Thanksgiving, so the friend couldn't take it.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, okay.
Honestly, I feel like if it was dragging out like that long, I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Like if she wasn't giving
Over
the
it.
girl like an answer and then like it waited all of like this time and then she was like, oh, like here's my out. Like I honestly probably would have taken it too.
Yeah.
But I don't think she ever said no. She just stayed quiet. That's the
I think
thing.
that's part of the
Yeah.
problem. She
Yeah.
should have set a boundary though. She definitely should have just been like, no, I'm not. Like, because then at least it gave the other person time to figure out something else.
Yeah.
You kind of like held her off.
To the very last moment, she was like, nope.
Yes, and I could get why that would be upsetting, because I've been in situations where like instead of telling me no, someone would just like for vacations or something, for example, they'd be like, oh, maybe I can go. And then you're like, just tell me
Same.
so I can
Just
like
say yes or no.
find
Yeah,
someone
just
else.
let me know. Be real. If you
Yeah.
don't want to go,
Yeah.
if you can't make it happen, it's totally fine. Just tell me.
Mhm.
So I'm not
Yeah.
asking
Yeah,
what's bothering
I
you.
feel like too, like with Mary being so like like thinking that it wasn't a big deal to like borrow the car. Like she probably has like that like easygoing like personality, like whatever, you know?
Mhm.
And so I
Yeah.
think like that just would have, like if I was asking, I've been like, did I need a plan? Like please just like let me know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm someone that wants a plan too. I need to know something. So same.
Yeah, it seems like they took advantage of the situation and like took advantage of the kindness and
Mhm.
yeah, just didn't even think of a backup plan at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and she was like talking to her parents like about it in front of the girl, being
Yeah.
like,
I
oh,
know.
yeah, like
It was
look what I can do
obvious.
if I have the car.
That's like not a mature way to deal with
Yeah.
conflict.
At
That's
all.
definitely something I might have done freshman. Like I feel like I would have done that freshman year.
Yeah, when you're young, right? When you're
Yeah,
young.
like I'm like, Mom, I could so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, it's like your first time like being away from like your family and like you're in like such close quarters like with this person that you're just like, oh yeah, like
Mhm.
you know.
And you're
Yeah.
like not super good at communicating yet, so you're kind of like maybe they'll overhear me.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. You're
Maybe
just
they'll
like,
get the hint.
yeah.
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 Okay.
Freshman
So
year definitely gave a lot of people communication skills.
yeah.
for
For
right?
sure.
Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like every day I learn better communication skills through not good communication skills.
Yeah. Like even looking back on it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like why were we fighting about this?
Yeah.
That could have been handled so differently.
I think about that all the time too. I'm like, that was
Yeah.
so pointless. I just don't understand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I feel like things just seemed bigger to me back then.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
I
for
tell my
sure.
little sister that all the
Yeah.
time because she's 18 and she's always like has some drama going on or something that's so intense. And I'm like, you have no
Oh,
idea.
yeah.
Like everything's intense right now. And then you get older and you're just like, whatever.
No,
I
I
know.
feel like
My
you
sister's
take so many
graduating right
L's.
now.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
like you take so many L's in college that you're just like, meh. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I
Whatever.
take 100 a day, so like someone screwing me over is just not a big deal anymore. Like I'm
Yeah.
like,
I'm like, whatever. Next.
Next.
I'm busy. So true.
Okay. Question 3 is what styles would you have used if you were Joan or Mary? Might the conflict have turned out differently had they chosen different approaches?
Yes, I think she was definitely a little avoidant, right? And then she wasn't direct. She was talking to her mom instead. So if she was more direct, had open communication and was just honest, I think that would have been better.
Mhm.
yeah, and
Yeah.
sort of
Like it says she started like seriously shopping for a car like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Like so she was like already talking about it before. Like it was probably like a month before Thanksgiving. Like
Yeah.
so she avoided that for a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
she could have been more assertive, more active, more cooperative. Like
She could have
All of
just
it.
like
Literally all of it.
explained her reasoning like
Yeah.
to Mary.
Yeah. Yeah, just communication in general just would have been super beneficial. They would have been in much better standing than just avoiding it and all of that. So
Yeah.
And I think they should have put some boundaries in the beginning too.
absolutely. Yes.
Or even
Boundaries.
ask.
So
Like if
important.
Mary like thought it was like this big like she said like invasion of like personal property, like
Mhm.
I feel like a big thing like freshman year too was like having to like take a step back and like being like, okay, they weren't raised exactly how I was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then like we'd have to explain to each other like, oh well, like growing up, like we did this or like blah blah blah. And the like my roommate would be like, oh no, like that,
Like
no.
we didn't
And
do
so
that.
that's
last
like
time.
how I
Mhm.
was able to like understand like, oh, that's why this bugs her.
Yes. No, exactly. I feel like that's something I notice a lot in just relationships in general with friends and stuff, coworkers. If you have like a little bit of a disconnect or something, it's definitely that's something you can think about. It's like, oh, well, maybe they just, they didn't understand the way that we do, or they weren't raised the way that we do, or that we were. So I think
Yeah.
it makes a big difference.
Okay, think about a situation in which you wanted to use a collaborating style and found the response you received made it difficult or impossible. What did you do?
let's see.
Um,
Well, it says that collaborating style takes like a lot of effort from all parties.
mhm.
So I think anytime you go into conflict with a collaborating style and the other person doesn't like have that same energy as you, it obviously is very frustrating. I feel like I like thinking like looking back at like the conflicts I've had in my life, it's always been, or not always, but most of the time has been like me putting in more effort than the other person.
Yeah. I think I feel the same way.
Yeah, I think that's like the case in like a lot of like personal like friendships and relationships.
Mhm.
But I think
Mhm.
like in a workplace, so like I work like my office is mostly like men, so I work in like the defense sector and it's like big egos, big
Oh,
personalities.
no.
And they're like they always are like arguing or bickering, then they're like, how does everyone get along with Abby? And I'm like, because I sit there and like listen to the person. Like I don't like
Yeah.
jump to conclusions and like get defensive.
Mhm.
So like going into it like with like that collaborating style, like it allows you to like hear the other person and like why they approach the situation the way they did, like why they think like their solution's like the best outcome versus like getting
Mhm.
defensive and being like it's my way or like no way.
It's so
Mhm.
It's so true. Yeah. And then if you're like trying to collaborate and they're avoiding you or, just being childish, honestly, then it's like we're not on the same page here and we're not going to come to a conclusion or have any solutions because you're acting one way and I'm trying to collaborate.
Yeah. And then a
Yeah.
lot of times, like when that happens, like you don't find a solution and then you end up bringing other people into it.
Mhm.
And it just makes like both of you look bad.
Yeah, that or sometimes the relationship can be damaged completely and then there's always future issues, bad things or little things can make a relationship fall apart and it wasn't even like
Mhm.
that bad or big to begin with. So I think when you are in some type of situation with the person, maybe definitely being on the same page to collaborate and find a solution would be important.
I also think that with the collaborating conflict style, like the reason a lot of times conflict even happens is because someone doesn't want to collaborate anymore and it's like inevitable.
Mhm.
Like you see this with breakups and like when someone eventually wants to end a friendship,
Mhm.
it's because like the other person is no longer holding up their end of a relationship. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like them cutting off that collaborating style with conflict as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it
Yeah.
just,
I think
you know,
I think a lot of people like when like a relationship ends and like obviously like you get like frustrated or like upset about it, like the other person's reaction like kind of like creates like your emotions too, like about the situation. So like
Mhm.
if you like approach it where like you're just like done and like don't want to like collaborate, like
Mhm.
I feel like it's so much more likely for the other person to like go and like talk badly about you, being like they didn't want to like talk about it or like,
Yeah.
like they were just like, nope.
Mhm.
but in like reality, that was them just basically trying to cut off the relationship in an ineffective way.
Yeah,
Right.
literally.
Right.
Yes. Better ways to
Trying
do
to
it.
find the better definition of collaborating style before we move on. Let's see. Oh, it starts on page 121. I read it, but like I read it earlier and now it's 8, so I have to like go back. Okay, yeah, so there's that like parties have to believe they have the potential to resolve the conflict. So like if the other person doesn't see that potential, then there's just no way that that conflict is going to become a collaborative style.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also says like all parties must be a vested interest in the outcome. So like if the other person's just kind of like looking for like the easy way out or like they're just like over the situation or like the relationship, like
Yes.
if they don't want to find like a solution, like
Then it's
they're not
not
going
what-
to.
Mhm.
Yeah, true.
Very true. Wow.
And then I guess we should talk about like the workplace as well. We talked about it a little bit. Like in a school or workplace, if you're not like super excited about what your company or your group is doing, then you're not going to have that collaborative style because you don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
even for me, like recently I had a thing at work with, I have like my boss and her husband. Her husband, I'm going through like a health thing, okay? And I tried to explain that to him because I didn't want him to think I'm not taking my job serious, and which is why I was at the doctor's today actually. And he like I just feel like we were just on such different pages. It was so hard to communicate. I'm over here trying to collaborate and explain, have that really good, honest communication. And then he was more like, no, I believe you. But this and that, it wasn't like coming to a solution or trying to help or support me. So I think in the workplace, it's hard sometimes because you do come across a lot of people who are so different from you. And there are a lot of people that always think that they're right, or they just don't understand you. And so that's difficult for sure.
Or they just don't want to, like they might accept that you're having these issues, but they're like, this is really inconvenient, so I'm just gonna like make her feel bad,
Exactly. Yes. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much
Ignore it, yeah.
Oh my God.
Definitely like in the corporate world, I feel like it's all about like convenience for that person. Like
It is.
our like site director, she's like one of the only females we have in like a leadership role. And
Mhm.
she was on like international travel for 2 weeks, and she got back and looked like a truck hit her. Like she was so sick.
Oh my
And
God.
she came in for a meeting, and like she's literally like walking down the hallway, and like she's like, I feel so sick. And one of the other like program managers was like, oh, I need to talk to you. And she's like, well, I'm going home. And he's like, no, like let's just for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
he
It's-
looks so sick. Like just let the poor lady go
Read
home.
the
No,
room.
yeah.
But it was like all about like a convenient time for him.
Yeah, I just can't. Like, I feel like for me, I'm always like, you're a human first, and you have a whole life going on outside of work. And then you're like other things, you're not just an employee, and a lot of people don't understand that they're just corporate by the book. And I feel like
Yeah.
it just doesn't always work.
Yeah, the hardest thing with me with work is like I'm still settling into like the 9 to 5 lifestyle. And it's just like one of those things where I'm like, this is my only life. Like this is my one time I get to be here. And like, I don't know why I'm so scared to set a boundary, because it's like, I'm literally like,
Right at work, I feel like sometimes it is hard to set a boundary, or like it's just awkward. And that's another thing for me too. As I've gotten older, I like had to force myself to set those boundaries, because I can do it easily with people close to me, but like at work it's awkward sometimes. So it's very important. I understand.
Yeah, no, it definitely took me like a long time. Like I've been at this job almost 2 years, and like especially like being like one of the only females, and like being like as young as like I am, like I was like I didn't take like PTO for the longest time. Like my parents would be like, oh, like go do this, like go visit your friends. I'm like, well, like that would mean I have to take like time off of work like on Friday. And they're like, so what? And I'm like, but then like I'm being an inconvenience to everybody.
I know you got to put yourself first,
And then
because
like as soon as I started doing it, I'm like, nope, I'm out of the office. Like
yeah, I'm busy.
on Monday.
Yeah,
No, yeah. I had an interview last week and I was like, oh, I can't work Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have class.
Mhm.
And then she like straight up looked at me. She's like, I can't promise you Tuesdays and Thursdays off. And I was like,
You're like, well, I can't promise you I'm going to work here then.
yeah, you're
Right?
like,
don't like that.
you're like, it's 2 out of the 7 days. Like,
Yeah,
figure it-
exactly. And they're 12. So I only need to work 3 times a week. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
nope,
Oh
nope.
my
You're
God.
Oh,
telling
this
me I
is
can't
this
do
for
that?
like nannying?
No, I work at PCH, so at Phoenix Children's.
How
Yeah.
cute. I used to volunteer
Yeah.
there. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and I was like trying to move up to the floor, and I work
Yeah.
nights, so I work 7:30 to 6 in the morning the next day. But I'm like trying to switch over, so instead I'm gonna be working 7 a.m. to 7:30. And I was like, okay, well I have class 2 days out of the 7 days I can work. She's like, yeah, no, I can't promise you those days off. And I like looked at her and I was like, okay, well I have class, I can't come to work those days. And she's like, okay.
Literally.
I was like, okay.
Dude, those are like the worst like leaders. Like they
Yeah.
don't know like how to like communicate and like collaborate with you. Like you're in school, you're trying to like further your career, and they're like, oh no.
Yeah,
I
they're
was
like,
and you're
"We need
offering
you."
a simple solution. Like, you're like, I have 2 tiny times off during the week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was like, I don't even care if I work weekends, you know? But she's like, nah. I was
No,
like,
you're better than me. I would be like, Saturdays, I'm off. No, I'm just kidding.
He's like, I'm not gonna be here. No, I know.
Okay,
That's
we
good.
should probably move on to the next question.
That was actually the last one.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Was it 15?
Mhm.
Yeah, we hit 20 minutes.
Oh, good for
Oh,
us.
okay.